I want to welcome you back to another episode of what I branded Pivotal, since these interview style segments tackle impactful CPG industry topics and lessons from the business leaders that live it every day. As another quarter ends within the functional CPG space, it's only right that I ask my good friend and market insights director at Spins, Scott Dicker, to join me again for another one of our famous holistic categorical deep dive sessions. This time, we decided to tackle the evolving weight management category. In our conversation, we cover everything from the current level of consumer interest in the weight loss dietary outcome in America and recent scan data trends on several direct and indirect weight management supplement categories to how food and beverage CPG brands are selecting mass market culturally accepted gluttonous categories but viewing them through a lens of restraint. We also explore how the entire weight management category needs to adapt its positioning against the backdrop of the FDA approval of more and more pharmaceutical solutions, plus non and low invasive aesthetic service businesses popping up in every zip code. But before Scott and I dive into these fascinating topics and more surrounding the shifting business landscape within the weight management category, I wanted to give a quick shout out to New Live Science for supporting this awesome piece of content. Over the last 26 years, New Live Science has grown into the leading full range ingredient supplier, early stage developer of nutraceuticals, and a trusted turnkey service provider to the dietary supplement and functional food and beverage industries. By utilizing New Live's world class weight management ingredient InnoSlim, functional CPG brands can develop products that address the root causes and challenges behind unwanted weight gain. Backed by two human clinical trials, 250 milligrams of InnoSlim may support healthy weight loss by reducing excess glucose calorie absorption, appetite suppression, and increased fat burning. If you're interested in obtaining more information around why brands are formulating with New Live Science ingredients to take their products to the next level, head over to newlivescience.com or reach out to me directly and I'll connect you with the relevant team member. But without further delay, here is the recent conversation I had with my good friend and market insights director at Spins, Scott Dicker.
All right, so Scott warned me that he was going to have quite the tan going into this because he was just in Hawaii for a, I don't know what the word you used, but like a work slash personal trip. And I told him I was going to spend more time in the Houston sun to match his vibe, but I think I failed at that. So I think the only thing that I could use as a consolation prize was that I was going to wear this polo as a hint to what category of functional CPG that we are going to be talking about today. But if you haven't like guessed it, I guess from the YouTube thumbnail, the title of this video, or the company that gifted me this polo, Scott and I have decided that like round three of our piece of content that we've done this series is going to revolve around the weight management category. But let's kind of just jump into this. And I think since we're going to take a holistic approach to this category and this conversation, I think we should probably start out at like, around consumer intent or just kind of the insights or popularity around weight loss or weight management. And I think you said you mentioned you had some kind of data or insights that can kind of start this off good.
First of all, thanks for having me again, Josh. Always a pleasure. I wish I was a little more tan, but the summer is still around. But yeah, weight management's been an interesting category. We mentioned if you just look at traditional weight loss supplements, some of like the capsules, the pills, the thermogenics, some of those appetite suppressants, it's been a steady decline over the past couple of years, and it's looking to be decline a few more points this year as well. But interest overall in weight loss continues to be high. And I got some Brightfield consumer data that's showing at any point in the year, about half of the U.S. population is trying to lose weight. I think the only time it's a little less than that is around the holiday season, which makes sense as
Yeah.
people decide that I'm going to start in January. But the other area, that's typically consumed a lot of these weight loss consumers is like the protein and meal replacements category, and so that's seeing steady growth as well. So interest is there. Just the products, the in both supplements and food and beverage are changing a little bit. And then I know something that we want to get into, with the emergence of the pharmaceutical companies entering the category, a lot's going to change. Like, what do we think that that's going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that any consumer survey data or anything like that around, I guess, like dietary outcomes that I've seen, I'm talking probably the last decade that I've been in the space, like weight loss, weight management, anything that's kind of around that has always been near the top, if not the top kind of goal for people. And I think that makes sense if anybody has seen some of the data from the CDC in terms of its obesity or just being overweight. I think that, there's a lot of things that go on that maybe are driving people to want that. If it's just general diet culture that's been around forever, there's a ton of like popular fad diets that kind of gain steam over time. I think if it's social media pressure too, I think there's this like social construct of like thin people over the other side of like what is that gatekeeping of healthy beauty. There's all these kind of things that are going on that I think affect people's desire to constantly figure out this very difficult, I think, thing that's been going on in our culture. Because I think American life, we'll only speak because we're both Americans, I think, is that like there are a ton of things that I think mess with our ability to achieve even a fraction of like what those body goals or weight goals are. If that's our diet has changed over time, our lifestyles in terms of the way that we work or the way that we, leisure, any of that kind of stuff. I think all of that plays into this. It's tough because you have so much going on that's kind of going against what I think you want for body image goals or how to achieve that, and that has built up a very large category of products that have direct things that they say that like we're going to be able to fix this. If it's and I think wearing what I'm wearing, it's one of those things where hydroxycut for the longest time was the mainstay in terms of what we're talking about
Yeah.
with supplements, the caps, powders, pills, typical fat burners, or like you said, thermogenics, or if it's appetite suppressants, those types of things. That's always been, I think, what people think of, I think, first when we're talking about, weight management CPG. People are going to probably go towards maybe those categories first because those are directly stating that they are going to help that intent. But to your point, data over the last couple of years has proven that those traditional categories have not done all that well, because I think there's been, over time that like when you ultimately make big claims and not to say that these products don't work. I think it's a lot of times the consumer that is not doing the work on the back end to actually get these products to do what they need to do. Because again, when supplements are supplement to the rest of these larger things. So I think there's a lot of that goes on. But regardless, people perceive those things as magic pills or magic, and that kind of creates its own bit of problems where I think at the beginning people believe that, and then over time, maybe because it didn't work out the way they thought, that then chips away at the confidence in that category. And then now, I think perception becomes reality, where then a lot of people are looking at those traditional supplement categories and going, they don't work. Even though, again, I think there's a lot more to that equation that maybe is not being considered. But I think all that stuff is working against these traditional, kind of weight management or weight loss supplements.
First off, we should definitely say, trying to be truth tellers here, that some of them don't work, right?
Yeah.
And some of the advertising there has really misled, and I think it's really hurt the overall category. To your point, to some of the ones that could be helpful for people. I always kind of compare it like you would never eat a salad and think that you were going to just lose weight just by eating a salad, right? But it's reasonable to expect if you continuously eat salads day in and day out that you'll probably be in a position to lose some weight if so to your point, these things are not they're not designed to be on their own weight loss products, or weight management, I guess is the allowable term now. And so I think, coming in the form of, and some of the heavy marketing around it, I think it hurt it for a while. And then if we go back even further, I think consumers have really been searching for the next ephedra ever since
Yeah.
ephedra was around. and that hasn't really come to fruition. I know there was a and I guess I'll be aging ourselves a little bit, but there was, that surge in thermogenics for a while. I guess I'm like really blanking on the name one right now.
I think it's Oxy Elite Pro was, I
Oxy
think was,
Elite Pro
yeah.
is the one I was gonna link. I remember, way back in the day when I was working at Vitamin Shop, those were just flying off the shelf. And so, thermogenics did have popularity, and then, as ingredients get pulled, or things, I think that continues to undermine the category. But what is also interesting is that some of the products that were the non-thermogenics that gained steam were things like that supported blood sugar control,
Mm.
and we're seeing a little resurgence in interest in those, especially as some of the pharmaceutical weight loss products were initially targeting diabetes. And so those are happening. And then the other thing that we should mention is the effect of social media, and I know that's something we wanted to get into, playing a big role. We've seen it across the entire store, every category. It's hard to find a category where we haven't seen some example of an ingredient going viral on TikTok and then seeing sales surge. We actually track it weekly since we look at when the first viral video went, and then we track weekly sales to see the increase. And there's significant increase every time. Just a couple examples. We saw that there was a TikTok trend about drinking a prebiotic soda. I forget the brand name offhand, so I don't want to say the wrong one. And an Ali probiotic gummy,
Mm.
and together it would say lose 7 pounds in 7 days. And then we tracked, both the brands, and they both started going way up. Right after that viral video. And then the new one, we see berberine, which has been dubbed nature. I think it's called Nature's Ozempic,
Yeah.
is what it's being touted for. And so, that's starting to surge as well. And the interesting thing is it's surging. It's going up in all channels. One of the most interesting things that I've read recently came from an NBJ survey and report where they found that shoppers in the natural channel were actually more likely to want to try Ozempic than than
Mm.
non-natural channel shoppers, which really surprised me because usually they're a little more weary of pharmaceuticals. And it was a larger gap when what the question was asked, short term versus long term. But that's still an interesting thing that, these have, these pharmaceuticals are going to be mainstream and really disrupt things. But going full circle, that doesn't mean that there isn't a role for some of these traditional supplements to play, especially if they happen to go viral on social media. This is kind of, what we were talking about earlier, the new Dr. Oz effect, where, what was it, Garcinia Cambogia,
Yeah.
raspberry ketones, and I think there was one more, like African mango or something, where, Dr. Oz touted them one day, and they saw spiked sales for a couple of years,
Yeah.
actually, elevated sales. And so what we're seeing with some of these social media trends is that even after the initial surge from going viral, it still maintains elevated growth from where it was before the video went. So that's, I don't know if that means people, it's working for some people, or, people just they added to the regimen. They were doing other things. They happened to lose weight as well. But the power of being famous on social media as an ingredient, not even the person, really resonates with continued sales growth. And so that gets into all kinds of supply chain ingredient questions as well.
Yeah, the berberine thing right now is kind of insane. I shared something recently because people know that I take a finance or numbers perspective a lot of times. So when I'm looking at news sources, a lot of times I'm kind of when I see something like on CNBC, they're talking about this supplement, I go, okay, this has gotten red hot then, because if it's hit
Yeah,
that level of people paying attention to it, I'm like, this is insane. And I remember even a handful of years ago when people were talking about in the kind of the sports nutrition thing, they'd call them glucose disposal agents and GDAs, and like we'd always have this discussion on, does a consumer actually understand what that means? Do they really get the true value of that? Do they understand, whatever that is? And then it takes something like what's happening now for then it's reframed a little bit in a different way, or maybe put in front of different customers, that then it makes a lot more sense, where it all of a sudden becomes a rocket ship. And the numbers that I'm seeing across, Amazon, or even some of the brands that I work with that have some of those ingredients within their products, it's insane. And to your point, it's probably a lot of, it's social, it's a lot of the other media, kind of properties also kind of jumping on to get it even further into other areas of the world that maybe aren't all that savvy on some of that stuff, and then they are kind of taking that and running with it. But it's kind of insane. And you talked about, because of maybe this differing view of weight, loss, weight management. I've even heard the term like weight wellness. Like we seem to be softening and softening and softening this, and then it gets into this point of like, okay, that then widens, I think, what is considered these types of products, and then how do you use them in a lifestyle, which is really the right message at the end of the day, is like these should be approached in a lifestyle way. You should be looking at all inputs to make sure that it's supporting this dietary outcome. But it does get into what I think you were mentioning, is that maybe categories of products that wouldn't really be considered, I guess, directly marketing towards these weight, management or weight loss outcomes, that then become, I guess, ride the wave, or become, adjacent beneficiaries of this that's going on. So if it's, to your point, like if it's, if it's some of these meal replacements that have become extremely popular, if it's like a Huel or a Kachava, or whatever. But I also think like it's funny, because there's a lot of even the mainstay products that maybe aren't getting the same boost. Like if we think Slim Fast, we think Atkins, we think I don't think Weight Watchers makes a lot of those like powders and stuff anymore, but they used to. And like a lot of that stuff, like the legacy brands aren't getting the same, I think, benefit from this. But I think all of this together is actually something that supplement brands, or just like, anybody, food and beverage applications as well, should be looking at and saying like, how do we position ourselves to ride some of this shift? Because I think that just offering the most direct products, like we said before, fat burners, appetite suppressants, those types of things, those might not be the winning hand. It might be something else now.
Yeah, and I think going to retailers as well, how you market, these product lines, to include things like fiber has been a huge, fiber's been doing really well, and that's been, historically used, as an appetite suppressant as well as for gut health, which is another big trend right there. So as like whether you're e-commerce or brick and mortar, um, instead of just having those thermogenics, your CLA and whatnot in your weight management category, maybe the softening of the language is actually a good thing, because where you can include some of these products that people wouldn't think of, like some of the meal replacements, both in the drink and powdered, or just protein powder in general. Um, you can make a strong argument that those are better for weight, quote unquote, weight management than a lot of those other products that we've talked about. But if the brand happens to not be marketing themselves as like a core weight management brand, some of these consumers might not find them. So being able to have like those content available on your website, and maybe product recommendations. I know, not saying we recommend this for weight loss, but just like as a partner product to a lot of these things. It's big for both brands, when they think about their marketing, their messaging, and their product development, but also the retailers, as they look to build baskets, and really help their shoppers.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point around just retail merchandising, where that's located. And I just had listened to Simply Good Foods Company, their earnings call yesterday, and they own Atkins, and they own Quest. And one of the analysts on the call in the Q&A asked around Ozempic and Wegovy, and all these other kind of weight loss solutions that are coming out there, and really trying to kind of understand their thoughts around that. Like, how is Atkins going to think about that? And one of the points that they brought up as a possible kind of benefit to that is that the consumers that are utilizing those weight loss drugs, they have to go to a pharmacy. And most of these products are located in a healthy living section or the pharmacy section in grocery stores or mass retailers or wherever. So people have to pass that section. They have to be in that section. Maybe they have to wait for their prescription to be ready and they peruse within that area. So then it becomes this, I guess, opportunity for them to figure out how do we adjacently position ourselves as not a foe to these, not a competitor to these, but also but a friend. How do we become, that solution set? Because I can't remember if we mentioned this off the call or not, but we were talking about, these drugs specifically are working against your appetite, and you eat less, and because of that, you want to get more nutrients, you want to get better, better sources of food that you're in there, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to severely change your lifestyle, and you're not going to still live in the snacking generation. You're not going to still think about convenience, and you're not going to think about, so like these healthy snacking companies that are, like an Atkins, or if it's a Slim Fast or whatever, like they have the opportunity to think about themselves as like the friend to these drugs. Like they're offering convenient solutions that are better for what ultimately these consumers maybe are typically eating. They're not the best. I mean, there's I think Whole Foods, nutrition dense, Whole Foods are probably your best bet here. But I think that asking a consumer that maybe is choosing to take those weight loss drugs to then drastically also change their lifestyle is probably it's going too far. Like I just think that that's not going to happen. It's going to take time for these behaviors to change over time, and then there has to be some, I guess, gap or something that fills that gap. And I feel like these could potentially be that if they understand how to do that.
Great point. And around the merchandising, I didn't even think about the pharmacy style. And maybe that's like the beachfront property, maybe right next to the pharmacy stand going forward. It's really it's really interesting as well as what other categories can benefit. And so I think I mentioned things like greens powders. We've seen that. I can't listen to a podcast without a famous greens powder being one of the sponsors. And so it appears like that's something that's really resonating with consumers, who are maybe not eating enough vegetables. And so I think that's a category that's going to continue to evolve along with that. And then as well as things like multivitamins, if you're eating less, you might not have been eating healthy to begin with. So it's something like a multivitamins an easy add for convenience sake as well. And then just one more thing on the merchandising, I always go back. One of the things that I always find so interesting is when I go into Target, you find Vital Proteins collagen in the supplement section and the beauty section. And
Mhm.
I think that opens up such an opportunity for consumers who had never walked down one aisle to find their products in this other aisle. So the same could be said for, some of this cross merchandising. If some of these brands can make a strong case to these retailers, they'll be gain exposure to a lot of customers who wouldn't just walk right by the protein aisle, or the multivitamin aisle, depending on the retailer.
Yeah, because I think you're touching on something that I feel like gets missed a lot of times when we're talking about some of these weight loss drugs, is that I think people are looking at that as like a health and wellness thing, and they go, okay, well, there's obviously going to be these, beneficiaries, and this is how they're going to play it because that's the consumer intent behind why they're taking these things. But I also think there's a vain beauty aspect to this, like what I mentioned before around, there's social ideals and constructs and people around thin and beauty, and like, how that all kind of plays into that. That's like a well entrenched, I think, thought in people's heads, and they're taking these drugs for reasons that maybe aren't necessarily as, health and wellness oriented as maybe we think. And then it gets into the point where you're saying, like, should some of these other ones products, if it's Vital Proteins or any of these kind of, like, does Nutri Cosmetics play into it? Can you get the supplements and some of these weight management products merchandise in different sections, that then those consumers that have a different intent behind why they're taking those drugs also get something that can be, a basket builder or complementary to what they're looking for to improve that. I think that's something that I've noticed, that people, when they're talking about the Ozempics and stuff like that, they're only talking about it from like, oh, people are trying to get healthier. But I don't necessarily think that's everybody. I think there's a lot of people that are actually looking at it from a more surface level reason, that they don't really are thinking about the long term health aspects of it.
Oh, you mean people just want to lose a few pounds for spring break?
Yeah.
That's yeah, of course there is. I'm not, it'd be impossible to speculate on the percentage of people, but totally agree. And there's, we've seen a lot of interest in, from a supplement standpoint, beauty from within. So some of the supplements that go along with that. And it seems to be trending in more of like a natural way. We just released actually a natural beauty white paper. Let me give a shameless plug for it there. As people are, looking for more natural ways, but the interest is still there. One of the interesting takeaways, not to veer too much off topic, is that a lot of the expansion from natural beauty is coming from how they're advertising towards more men now. And so, like the very stereotypical weight loss consumer of years ago was female. But I think, going the marketing, where like the marketing for a lot of these sports nutrition products was all young men, and now it's expanded to be more inclusive. That's why we're seeing a lot of this surge. The opposite is happening in like the beauty from within and the natural beauty space, where a lot of the marketing was predominantly female. And now it's expanding men, and showing growth there. So the marketing opportunities are very interesting around weight loss. It's interesting because I do think that weight management products that are like specifically targeted for weight management are going to continue to decline from like a supplement space. But that doesn't mean the interest is has left. I think it's just the terminology and like the product positioning that's changed. So these other adjacent categories of products that are probably better for weight management to begin with, better fits. I think they're going to benefit. Uh, but the data for things targeting weight management specifically, I think, is going to continue to trend down for the near future, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, another force that's maybe affecting some of the sales is, we talked a lot about like these products that are explicitly saying they're for weight loss. You know what I mean? And I think that if we talked before the internet, like, you needed to understand those very explicit promises on label, and that you took that as, where else would you get the information for or whatever. But I think now, with the internet, like, with, you could basically, I guess, figure out products that aren't necessarily considered weight management or weight loss products. And this is mostly from a food and beverage application. You're looking at the, taking a mainstream all American food category or beverage category, and then figuring out a way to basically switch it into a better for you, healthier for you version. Examples that are out there, if it's like Magic Spoon, or even like Quest chips, or Halo Top, like all those are not weight management products, because they don't specifically say that. But anybody with smart enough sense realizes that, yeah, that's what they're actually are at the end of the day. And a lot of that buying, because I think of its social media, if it's the internet, and just the ability for people to just make those connections without the product labeling have to making those connections. Like, people are naturally using those products for those reasons. So then they have less, wallet share left for maybe some of these other ones, because there are so many options now. So I think that, there's a, what is in the category, what's not in the category. That's always the issue in terms of definitions. And I know that you guys deal with that constantly, is like, what is considered this, what isn't considered it. And I deal with that as well. And it's a matter of like, I think sometimes opening up the aperture and saying like, okay, what is actually really in this category, and like, is that actually affecting some of these ones? And I think it's, all this is kind of again, we're talking holistically about all this, because I think that when people think about weight management, especially a lot of maybe, legacy individuals that have been around the block a while in the space, they go towards these very traditional fat burner pills or thermogenics or whatever. And that's not telling you nearly any of the story of what today's weight management, weight wellness, weight loss category is. And if you don't understand all of what's going on, like it's hard to really understand how to play to win. It's very hard to understand like where are you going to be positioned and actually get attention and get sales and get all that. You can't play the game that was out there a decade or more ago. That's just not available anymore.
Yeah, it's become niche almost, and the diet pill, quote unquote, has become kind of a dirty dirty word in that sense. And every category's kind of gone quote unquote natural and better for you. Some of the last junk food categories, I was talking about last year, was like candy and soda, and now we've seen a lot of these growth in like the pre and probiotic sodas, using different sweeteners, things of that nature. And then candy, again, you're removing the sugar. A lot of people are using things like allulose now. And then, protein continues to have a halo around it. So there's options in every category as people are shopping. In theory, you could have your entire basket full of these better for you options that are, aimed at reducing sugar or calories or boosting protein and fiber. And so to look at the category just in like that one, not even the one aisle, just like one shelf,
Yeah.
pretty much, or like three shelves of it, really doesn't tell the story. So again, while every time we do a supplement presentation, I anticipate weight loss targeting supplements, weight management, I'm sorry, to be going down. The interest is still there, and honestly, I think we need more of it, in some of these categories. I think there's a lot of innovation left to be had, and and a lot of it's gaining steam. Things like in the probiotic space, especially, it's very interesting, and also around some of these other categories that are typically higher in sugar, or some of these sweeteners as well. There's a lot of innovation left to be done as well.
And I also wanted to, I guess, cover two last things that maybe aren't necessarily, I guess, CPG related, but I think are things to think about that maybe not necessarily could be bad things. They could also be something that, again, if you understand the trends of what's going on, then it's a matter of can you figure out how to be a friend to those trends? Can you attach yourself to those trends? I think two things going on is one with more the food is medicine kind of movement that's going on. I think a lot of that and how that can be kind of utilized in a way for weight loss purposes. I mean, like because again, a lot of these, I guess, problems that we're having in American culture could be tied to nutrition related diseases. And then a lot of it comes down to there's overweight individuals or obese individuals that, that's going to be a focus for food as medicine. It's going to be focused on some of that. So then it's a matter of, okay, if people are changing lifestyles or changing those things, it goes into those supplements start to then be more effective because if people are changing the rest of their system and their lifestyle, then it's going to be back to them having more realistic sets of expectations and maybe they're going to be more beneficial. It's like that could end up helping them in a certain way. And then the other side is I think, a little bit of an adjacency to what we talked about with like the beauty from within or the nutri-cosmetic space. And this is more these aesthetic services that have been popping up. And this could be both females and males, but you have a lot of these kind of brick and mortar stores or even telehealth or things that are going on that you have the ability to go in and get solutions to these problems in a different way than you normally would because you don't have to go through these big hoops to go through your medical kind of insurances and things like that. There's all these kind of things that are on almost every corner of every suburb at this point. If it's on the male side, it's usually like hormone clinics or people that are focused on testosterone and that kind of stuff, or you have a lot of times the female oriented ones that could be things that are beauty oriented kind of aesthetic services. It could be weight loss things. It could be these different robotics applications that help you with strengthening in a fitness application or whatever. And all those things, again, it's like at the end of the day, because this is, I think, a problem that people are trying to solve, now the market has so many different solutions. It's not just this clear cut, here's the only option that you have. Consumers have so many options. So then they're choosing to spend their wallet share in different ways than how they did before. And I think that creates its own set of challenges or opportunities depending on how you see it. And I think that brands, if you're only wanting to be a great product that's on shelf and that's how you're going to want to try to help this problem. It's like, okay, how are the other parts of this solution out there, and how do you kind of make sure that you're complementing the best ones, or associating yourself with the best ones, and then making sure you're being aware of the ones that are out there that maybe could be causing some resistance to your brand or whatever. I think I always want to make sure that people understand the full, I guess, view of what's going on, because a lot of these things are relatively new, and maybe if you're not necessarily paying too much attention, you don't know how they're affecting your specific, functional CPG brand.
And to add to that, like wearable tech, like health tech,
Yeah.
personalized things like that. Sleep trackers is a big one. There's a lot more awareness now about if you're not sleeping, all these other health implications, including usually putting on a few pounds. So it's a full ecosystem of products. I agree. It's not just in the supplement aisle. It's not just in the grocery store. It's really everywhere. And so this overall health, it goes back. We've talked a lot, before about like the active nutrition space, and that ties right in as well. So you see a lot of growth there, and some of that can be, dollars directly taken from this weight management space put into the active nutrition space that covers all these type of things. And so it's a little bit confusing landscape to go on, but a lot of them are tying together. Especially with people consuming so much content, they're making a lot of these ties. Not all of them the correct ones, but well, in my opinion, the correct ones. But you are seeing people tie these things together, and so finding for a brand to really find complementary products, maybe in completely different categories, not even non-food even. And so it's really interesting to watch, and I think it's only going to continue, as I do think that we're going to see a enormous boom um, in discussion around the topic as more and more of these drugs come to market. And I mean, it seems like there's an endless demand for it at the moment. So people are still interested. I think is the to come full circle to where you
Yeah.
started. The interest is still there.
Yeah, I'm glad you tied it all in for me. I didn't have to do the ending summary there, because you brought it full circle for me. Yeah, I think the point of all this is that, yeah, there's the consumer motivations or popularity around that dietary outcome is, if anything, has increased, not decreased. It's just the category and the solutions as a whole have changed so much that then, how people are solving or trying to solve that problem maybe are a little bit different. But Scott, I always appreciate your giving us this time. I really enjoy these quarterly kind of chats. I know that the audience has enjoyed them. I think each one becomes more popular and more popular. I hope they enjoy this one as well. I think this one was super good. But if anybody has any ideas about maybe what you guys want to hear for the next quarter, we're open to whatever you guys want us to talk about. We could tackle any category, so maybe you guys want to throw us a curveball and try to see if we get tripped up. I don't know, it's whatever. But Scott, thanks again for giving us this time, and I appreciate all the insights that you shared.
Thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to next time.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, considering the like button to support me. Also, help me get to my new short-term goal of 3,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that basically 80% of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.